Malawi is a country that relies on agriculture to boost its economy. In 2019, disaster struck. Cyclone Idai hit the shores of Africa with devastating effects on the Malawi agriculture sector. This catastrophic tropical cyclone, which was coupled with strong winds and extensive flooding, left several farmers homeless and without food. The infrastructure, such as roads, bridges, and irrigation schemes that support livelihoods of myriad farmers, were heavily damaged and left in shambles. Smallholder farmers who heavily rely on agriculture for their livelihoods were the hardest hit. Government had to step in through the Agricultural Commercialization (AGCOM) project. As one of the interventions for supporting the affected farmers to cope with the shocks of Cyclone Idai, the government of Malawi, through the AGCOM project, procured maize to restock the country's strategic grain reserves, SGRs. Dr. Teddy Nakuma is the AGCOM National Project Coordinator.
SEC is the Contingency Emergency Response Component. This is pillar number 3 for AGCOM. It was deliberately put in the project to respond to issues of natural disasters. So when there is a natural disaster and the head of state declares so, the government is able to request for support. So in 2018, when we experienced the Cyclone Idai, the government of Malawi requested for support from the bank, and 20 million was released from AGCOM to respond. So the breakdown of the 20 million, in other words, what did we buy with 20 million? The 20 million was broken as follows. 7 million was allocated to maize procurement. 7.5 was allocated to irrigation schemes, because there are a number of irrigation schemes that were affected, 20 of them. So 20 irrigation schemes were rehabilitated, and the 15 roads towards those irrigation schemes were also affected and needed to be upgraded or rehabilitated. And 500,000 was allocated now for what we call social and environmental safeguards around those irrigation schemes. Now, what have we done so far? With the 7 million allocated to maize, we managed to procure about 21,000 metric tons, which was delivered to the SGRs in designated markets for the NFRA, ready, for dispatch anytime there is need to release that maize. So as we're talking now, there is 21,000 metric tons that we bought and procured on behalf of government.
Through the Contingency Emergency Response, AGCOM also rehabilitated damaged irrigation schemes in several districts and feeder roads leading to these schemes.
Now the irrigation schemes, 20 irrigation schemes are to be rehabilitated, and these, when you talk of hectareage, you are talking about 2,029 hectares of irrigation scheme rehabilitated. And these are both, the irrigation, you are talking of both gravity fed and solar system. So for most of them, I would say we found that was totally nothing. So it's like you establish again. And it was quite massive, but I'm happy to report that when you go to irrigation schemes, most of them, 90% is done. So we hope that this coming season, people now will start utilizing. But what we've done beyond, responding and rehabilitating these irrigation schemes, we've gone there as well as AGCOM to recruit the farmers, try to mobilize them, because most of them, of course, were under irrigation, but they were not. These are just, subsistence farmers. So we want them to become commercial farmers. So we help them develop proposals to access matching grants from AGCOM. So most of these irrigation schemes will become now AGCOM cooperatives. Then they will access further interventions in terms of the matching grants, in probably last mile infrastructure, in case they will need other support in terms of any other infrastructure apart from irrigation, or even going to, with secondary canals that will come under the last mile infrastructure. So we've also rehabilitated about 15 roads, covering about 100 kilometers with the 5 million which was allocated to roads. In terms of progress, we are below 40, but because they started late, you know that to move machinery for roads, you require that the land is stable. So we had to wait for the rains to cease. It's when they started. Unlike the irrigation where they started earlier, these started late. But we are happy because we know we've interacted with the consultants. There are consultants that we've hired to monitor and evaluate progress. They've assured us that come December, they'll be through with the road rehabilitation. So we'll have rehabilitated about 15 roads and constructed about 12 bridges.
Dedza is a district in the central region of Malawi. And here in Storo village, in Kachindamoto's area, we find Nambuna irrigation scheme, 200 hectares in size. The Cyclone Idai catastrophe did not spare it.
Nambuna is a 200 hectare scheme, and where we are is the intake. That's where the construction works, the rehabilitation works of the intake are happening. Initially, we had a problem of water in terms of the intake that we have had, and it had encountered the floods as a result of Cyclone Idai that we had last year. And that's when now we are trying to build back better so that we get to the position where we were, and maybe even better than where the farmers were. When we had a problem with the floods for Nambuna, then we had to do some designs for us so that we can have any response that may come in to assist the farmers. Through the Department of Irrigation, there's this component, contingency emergency response component under AGRICOM. That's where we had a chance to come in so that they can assist us with funding for rehabilitation of the works that were got damaged as a result of floods. And that's exactly how we got through to get to work with AGRICOM project.
The weir, which was the intake for their irrigation water supply from the river source, was extensively damaged and washed away. This meant the scheme could not function again until another weir was constructed. The intervention by AGCOM made this possible, and Sempa Investments was the company that was awarded the contract to do the rehabilitation works at the scheme. Armed with heavy equipment and a workforce that included locals from the community, construction works commenced. The main job activity of the project was the construction of a new weir and canals. To ensure the safety of the workers, safeguards are taken care of.
First of all, we ensure that our workers, they have got the PPE, which is the wetsuit, the helmets, and the gumboots or safety boots.
Zomba is a rice-producing district in Malawi. Here we find Njala irrigation scheme. Construction works for the weir, irrigation channels, bridges and feeder roads is underway, with some of the works already completed. A friend in need is a friend indeed. AGCOM has proven this beyond doubt to members of Njala irrigation scheme. From Zomba, we move on to Palombe. Kanjedza irrigation scheme in Palombe is one of the irrigation schemes being rehabilitated by AGCOM project. One of the main construction works at the scheme is an elevated dam that will be the main source of irrigation water. This dam is a pure human work of art, looking at the way it has been constructed. FICID is the company that was given the contract to rehabilitate Kanjenza irrigation scheme. The scheme produces a variety of horticultural crops like maize, onions, and vegetables. This scheme is a breadbasket for communities from here and beyond. Chiradzulu district was our next stop on our journey to appreciate the intervention by AGCOM to rehabilitate various irrigation schemes across Malawi. Our trek into Chiradzulu took us to Chisombezi, where we visited the Mpenga irrigation scheme. A lot of construction works were taking place, including that of a magnificent bridge that was a sight to behold. Yanko Jones, the irrigation officer from the area, explained about the works that were taking place there and what prompted AGCOM to step in when disaster struck and rendered the scheme helpless.
Chiro zimene zikuchitika pano pakumangidwa bridge komanso timakonzeredwa scheme yathu ya Mpenga irrigation scheme amene akutikonzera ndi Agricultural amene adabwera anayipezana kuti scheme yo sili bwinoyi ndi anaona kuti nchanzeru kuti atikonzere zimenezozo nde pokonza scheme upo akukonzaponso bridge imene sinali bwino komanso msewu akutikonzera umene sanamalize.
Ife ku scheme kwathu linali ndi vuto la madzi. Madzi anali ovuta ati kamathirira ndi vutolo linali kunoko ku bridge pauya pathu potengera madzi panali poonongeka komanso ku scheme kunali poonongeka nde litapempha thandizo anaonabe kuti sangangokonza scheme yokha popanda kulikonzera kuuya nde uya chifukwa chonera kuti yalumikizana ndi bridge chifukwa anayamba kutikonzera bridge pambuyo pake atimangire uya yonera kuti zitenga madzi zikasiya ku scheme.
A look at the present status of the scheme gives one a feeling of satisfaction with what AGCOM has done, going to great lengths to bail out the people from the community with the intervention after the floods washed away a greater part of their scheme. You never know need until you need it. The community had a great need of rehabilitation works at Mpenga irrigation scheme after the damage by the floods. This challenged the community on food production at the scheme, which is also their source of livelihood. The bridge is one of the main construction works taking place at the scheme. Before this bridge was constructed, the community faced a lot of challenges during the rainy season in trying to cross at the spot using a small bridge that was there. Accidents were happening occasionally. We continued with our journey, and next on the list was Cholo district. Here we find Mpoka irrigation scheme, which was established in 2006. This scheme has been the source of livelihood for people from surrounding communities. When Cyclone Idai hit the scheme, it laid waste to the irrigation pipes and canals. This caused untold misery to the people of the area. The floods of 2019 disturbed production of crops like maize, tomato, Irish potatoes, beans, onions, and several others at the scheme. Farmers were left destitute when the catastrophic Cyclone Idai hit their scheme square in the face. Chikwawa is a district lying in the Shire Valley. A lot of crops are produced in the district, and these include rice, beans, maize, cassava, and potatoes. Our visit took us to Mampazi irrigation scheme, where we met Zex Kalema, an extension worker for the area. He narrated about the past and present status of the scheme following the devastating effects of Cyclone Idai.
AGCOM kuzera kunguna wamalimidwe anatikonzera makanalo amene anali osawakidwa chiyambireni cha skimu yathu. Panali mavuto amene alimi amakumana nawo chifukwa nthawi zambiri akamafuna kuthirira madzi ambiri amangolowa pansi, koma chifukwa cha kumangidwa kwa makanalo amenewa mayendedwe amadzi akuoneka kuti asinthirapo. Chifukwa pa mavuto amene poyamba analipo akuoneka kuti panopo achepa. Nkhani yake inali kuti chifukwa madzi ambiri amalowa pansi alimiso kumindako amakanganira uje madzi akamafuna kuthirira, koma panopo vuto limenelo likuoneka kuti lachepera.
The benefits that the members of the scheme were enjoying before the catastrophe were enormous. Then came the catastrophe, and all their joy unspeakable came to a grinding halt. The coming in of AGCOM is sure to restore that lost glory they were enjoying before.
Mbewu zimene ziri tikalima zimatipindulira, timapezeka kuti tikakolola kugulitsa ana timathandizika kupitira ku sukulu, mwina kugula ziweto chokudya pa khomo, komanso achibale ena osavutika kuwagayira chithandizo ngati chimanga, chinangwa, kanti mbatata patali ndiwo zamasambazi amapezako mwayi moti mmene momwe tikakhala kuti mbewu zathu zotalima takolola.
All is well that ends well. Our journey had to come to an end, and what a better way to end it than at Chilembwe irrigation scheme in the same district of Chihuahua. The floods destroyed the weir and irrigation pipes that carry water from Livunzu River to the scheme's farmlands below.
Mu 2018-19 kunabwera madzi osefuka anagumulapo simukuona apa malo onse awawa anaonongeka kuti mapaipi uko onse anakokololedwa kotero kuti ife alimi tinayesa mu chaka chathacho kuyika patokha kutenga miyala kukhanga mapira komanso sipokhapo yayi kumatenga mitengo bula mitengo yaikuluikulu kuyika mapaipi kucheresa tokha, komabe madzi amene abwera 2019-2020 madzi amene anangomalizisa zonse kotero kuti mapira ngakhalenso mapaipi anathyoka ena kupindika. Ndiyeno ntchito yathu apa ngati alimi panafika kuti talephera sitingathe kuchita chilichonse. Choncho tinapempha unduna amalimbidwe kudzera ku irrigation kuti atipemphere kuboma chithandizo. Mwamwayi tinamva kuti chithandizo chapezeka ndipo abwera kudzakuthandizani.
Besides the construction works, AGCOM also mainstreams gender and HIV/AIDS issues. Gender mainstreaming is helping to bring equality when it comes to positions in the scheme committees, whereas HIV/AIDS mainstreaming is helping to mitigate the impact of the AIDS pandemic on the scheme operations and the community at large.
Ndipo sama didelera alimi vati mauza ndipo amastatira somwezi nawauza kuti akamachitika zachiwerewere pamene anthu ena amapasana matenda HIV pache wina amene akupasana akupanga zachiwerewere muna mmodzi mwa iwo ali ndi matenda ndi matenda amene akampasa munthu akapeza kuti akafuza kunyumba kwake mapeto ake timapasa anthu aja pakhomo mavuto ambiri pacha matenda amene aja azipezeka kuti mwina ntchito zawazikwiya muna osafanana ndi mene amagwirira kale.
Chilembwe irrigation scheme is comprised of men, women, and the youth who are eking out a living from it. The benefits are colossal. We had an opportunity to encounter Maiwao Stephen, a beneficiary from the scheme. She was busy working on her farm, applying fertilizer to a maize crop.
Kuthokoza kuti amene alipangira scheme wa asasiye ndithu khalo amene kuchitikawu komanso ife anthu tathokoza kwambiri ife kunoko njala ndiye inali pachimachi pamene angemba ife kulima scheme njala ndiyochepa ndithu ndiye momene asausiye ndithu apitirize.
According to the words of Sir Winston Churchill, we make a living by what we get, but we make a life by what we give. The farmers from the irrigation schemes in the impact area are having their lives transformed for the better. The road rehabilitation portion and the irrigation rehabilitation portion of the AGCOM project is essentially the technical assistance that the beneficiaries require to ensure they better capture the benefits of improved water delivery. With AGCOM interventions under pillar number 3 of the project, the lives of farmers are already changing and the effects of Cyclone Idai are slowly fading. If the farmer is rich, so is the nation. This project is not only doing the rehabilitation of irrigation schemes, bridges and feeder roads. AGCOM is also rebuilding lives devastated by the tropical Cyclone Idai disaster. For the beneficiaries, behind them are the challenges they've met, but before them lie new possibilities. And today, with the help of AGCOM, they can choose the direction of their lives through commercial farming.